Halt! The episode which you are streaming has orders from the Dalek Supreme Council. You are ordered to subscribe and exterminate the like button. Failure to do so will result in your death. Begin transmission.
Welcome, audience members. You are now entering the Parliament of the Daleks, a Doctor Who podcast focusing on the toys, action figures, and merchandise from the past, present, and future of our favorite sci-fi franchise. I'm your Dalek fanatic host, Wade, joined by figure expert Alex, Captain Kitbasher Jack, and in this episode, we will be celebrating the 17th anniversary of The End of the World from Season 1. We'll be sharing our top 5 characters we'd like to see continuing this series. In this episode, it's the end of the world as we know it. So, we are continuing with the next episode in Season 1 of Doctor Who, The End of the World. We'll do our top 5 characters from this episode that we think would be awesome toys in the Doctor Who 5.5-inch range. So, starting off in our number 5 slot, what do we have, Jack?
It would just be, if you've listened to our last episode, a repaint of the prototype sculpt Rose in her pink and baggy jeans and her pink hoodie. It would just be a grey repaint of the previously mentioned wish list version of the prototype Rose figure.
Now, Alex, we talked about this one in the last episode. How would we construct this figure?
I'd say it's essentially a repaint of what we suggested in our previous episode, where we have the Martha body with a new hoodie, torso wrap, and a new hair sculpt that then uses the Series 2 Rose head.
We were thinking it'd be good for a repaint in the sense that it can help maximize the costs of new parts and new molds and whatnot, especially for a figure like this. This is a pretty legitimate variant that I think people would want to collect, and it'd make for a pretty great figure on the shelf. Now, Jack, would you say you want this Rose more with the gray hoodie, or would you prefer having the pink one?
I think the pink one's more standout and more recognisable, but I've got a soft spot for the grey version, so probably for personal reasons, I would say the grey and maroonish hoodie she wears.
What about you, Alex?
For me, the pink one's more iconic, but I actually think the grey and dark red sort of panel look of that hoodie would make for a more interesting figure because it'd have more painted details on it.
Yeah, I think
Look
for
cooler.
me, I like the pink one probably just a tad bit more, but I definitely like the gray hoodie that she wears in this story. So, coming up in the next spot for number 4, we have the ambassadors from the City of Binding Light. That is a mouthful. But basically, we thought this would be a really interesting alien figure to make. Now, Alex, how would we construct this one?
Now, this one's kind of tricky because there's nothing that really fully matches the outfit of these characters, but we want to go for them because they have these very interesting looking heads. They're very almost Star Wars-esque in sort of alien look to them. So we sort of decided that we're just going to sort of go for an approximation of their robes. So decided to go for a Time Lord body, since it has that sort of draped robe look and the sort of slightly dragged cloth at the back and everything like that. And the Magnus Greel arms, so that you get that sort of really hanging low, like robe look on the arms. It would have a new head sculpt.
I'd be genuinely curious if those parts are maybe compatible with one another. And another thing, too, is the costumes are similar to each other for the two that we see prop-wise in the story. Perhaps character could get away with just repainting it for the other ambassador from the City of Binding Light.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think this is one of the more interesting aliens that we got from this story. Definitely a background character, but I think it'd make for a really fun figure, especially utilizing the parts like the Time Lord body and the Magnus Greel arms, which I think would fit it very well. All right, Jack, what do we have next for our number 3 spot?
We have the Adherence of the Repeated Meme, which I think it's probably got the greatest, aged name in Doctor Who ever.
Russell T Davies was ahead of his time. Little did he know what that would mean these days.
So for this one, pretty simple again. Just a Crispy Master from the Deadly Assassin, Earthshock android head, to achieve that sort of clothed, featureless face. a new golden chain neck piece, which would be for like a sort of necklace, jewelry item, whatever they had. A detachable robot arm to sort of add play feature to it, and an arm holding one of the spider droid's sphere casings, which I know it seems like a lot, but when you actually look at the logistics of it, it's pretty easy to make.
Yeah, so it's just a new gold chain accessory, maybe one new arm or two, and then a sculpt holding that little silver spear, or allowing it to hold it.
They could repurpose an oud ball just without the wire.
Oh, I wonder if something like that could work. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, this one's interesting because this again is quite a approximation type situation, but I think the Deadly Assassin Master is as close as you could get on a budget, and yeah, the android head from Earthshock is, it's an unusual choice when you sort of say it out loud, but if you think about the fact it is just a featureless face plate, you could just about get away with it if you painted it the same as the rest of the costume to just look like a blank featureless face. Suppose the character wanted to, add a bit more budget to this, then they could make it, but, coming up with the cheapest options here. The necklace piece is an obvious new part to add. Yeah, with the sphere, I think that has to be a new piece, to be honest.
Now, Alex, do you think the spider droid has that mold survived over the years, or do you think that thing's long gone?
To be honest, I don't know. Although I'd say it might still be hanging around, given how many copies of it's exist and how many times they used it. But then again, I think when was the last time it was seen? Because
I would have
I
thought
think
if they still had it, it would have come in that Ninth Doctor B&M set that we got way, way back in sort of the early days of the line.
I feel like the last time we saw it was maybe 2008.
yeah, because the thing I was thinking was, didn't Al say that anything from 2007 or 2007 and backwards could be damaged or whatever, but if it's 2008 or so, then they've still got it.
Well, yeah, basically, wasn't everything prior to Series 3 and maybe just the 10th Doctor and Rose were the only surviving things? And Martha. Because they even had to fix the Jadoon, didn't they?
Yeah, that's fixed the Jadoon sculpt quite heavily. Any of the figures, it's weird. I think the Jadoon are really the first ones they've had to fix. It depends how much effort they put into protecting the thing, because I think for doctors and companions and things that they get rid of, even back then they probably thought, let's preserve these with more care and effort. Because if you think about the re-releases of how they re-released the companion set in 2014-15 for the US with Underground Toys, so that means all those sculpts had to exist,
Although, wasn't there rumour that Sarah had some weird damage to her and they had to fix her coat or something?
That could be true. I mean, it's interesting. To me, they didn't look like they had any fixes done to them, because you can usually tell if they've been, because there's the tiniest of seam lines and things like that you can sort of see on the plastic and things.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Someone said that there's a new seam line on the back of the Sarah Jane jacket or something.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'd definitely be curious to find out about that, because you're right, it has been a long time since we've seen those spider droids, and I wouldn't really mind seeing them again. They're a fun little thing to get. Yeah, it'd definitely be interesting. I think the Adherence from the repeated meme would be a pretty great figure, especially if he had the detachable robot arm when the Ninth Doctor grabs it and rips it off. Having the sphere and then maybe a little robot to go with it too, that would be really great.
I just realised, if I had a penny for every time the Ninth Doctor's had a fight with a detached arm, I'd have 2 pennies. But it's weird this happened twice in a row. 2 consecutive episodes.
So, what's our number 2 spot that we have, Alex?
Okay, so we have it and Platform 1 Worker.
This is Wade from the future, just letting you guys know. I think Alex had some technical difficulty there. But what he said was, for our number 2 spot, we have the Steward, which is the blue guy, and then the Platform 1 workers, which are the little blue guys in the black outfits. Alright, Alex, go on to tell us how you'd construct this figure.
So for this, we would have the Kudlak arms with a new body wrap and head sculpt. And then for the Platform 1 worker, we would have the Grask legs with a new torso wrap, new arm, and new head sculpt.
This would honestly be quite a pair of figures, because they got such rich, deep blue skin. They would be really interesting, and I think they would stand out really well against the collection. Like especially the steward with the little diamond on his forehead and just like that interesting pattern on his jacket. I think this pair would be really cool, and perhaps people would like to army build to get a couple more of those platform 1 workers. Which, do those have an official name?
They're just called child workers, aren't they?
I don't know. All I remember is that girl who was the plumber. Parking ticket guys.
Yeah. I know at the experience they're just labelled as like workers, child workers or something.
Yeah, they'd honestly be kind of a fun little figure to get.
I think it's nice as well because it adds diversity to the shelf because they're smaller. So it's nice to have different scales on the shelf.
And you can display these little guys by the face of Bo too, or trying to give the doctor. Maybe it should have an obligatory parking ticket thing.
That would be cool.
So for this number 1 spot, you might be wondering, what is there left? You got the tree people, you got the weird bird, raven, crow, alien things. You got the wicker men, which that's your favorite, right, Jack? You like those guys?
I love those guys. They're so creepy.
Yeah, those things are pretty weird. But I think all of us right off the bat unanimously agreed for the number 1 spot with an entirely new sculpt, we would love to see Cassandra's Beauticians. And yes, they are officially called that. They are the Beauticians, which is such a fitting name for them in that episode. How the heck did these guys not get made back in 2006 or 2007?
They seem like the most toyetic thing in that whole episode. And there's aliens, there's like robots running around, and yet these things feel like that they should be toys. They could have like a water feature where you like squirt a pump and you could moisturize Cassandra. I feel like it's just like the obvious thing to make.
It'd be so brilliant. Like, I'm trying to wrap my head. How did Al not make this? He made Chip, but he didn't make the Beauticians. Like, you'd have to buy 2 of them, and they're so creepy looking for something that's just in a white lab coat, pretty much, and goggles, and then that black gun that they have. Like, for something so simple, it's so effective and so cool.
Something quite happy about it. I think it's that there's something about the surgical aesthetic that makes us as people sort of a bit freaked out, and it sort of amps that up to its greatest heights with like the way the heads are designed with those goggle type things on that all got the magnifyingness on them. And how do you describe like the way the head's like? It's
I don't know, it's just eerie.
Almost like a COVID mask for the head.
They're featureless, and their only sort of distinctive feature on their face is their like medical equipment.
Like, it's such a simple costume, but they're like, even as a kid, I thought, man, these guys are creepy. Like, especially if you played the online game on the website where you're playing as K9. Didn't you have to fight those guys or something like that? Like,
I think so.
They would like shoot you or shoot something at you, or I don't remember.
Moisturize you.
Weren't they in the game? I thought they were, because you fight Cassandra in one level, right?
Yeah, I think they are in the game. Or monsters, villains that are so basically obviously ripped off, designed around those guys.
Yeah. I want to say they were in that K9 game.
K1 game, baby.
K1 game would be cool, actually.
But yeah, I remember those things being scary. For our number 1 pick, we wanted to see Cassandra's Beauticians. We think those would be pretty dang cool to see as figures, especially since you got to buy 2 of them to go with your Cassandra or your destroyed Cassandra. I mean, but yeah, that was our number 1 pick, and I think we all unanimously agreed those things would be really cool as a figure. It's incredible they didn't get made back in the day. But for our last thing, like how we always like to add into these episodes, Jack, what is the playset you would like to make for this episode?
I personally think a venting platform would be amazing, where the specific scene where the Doctor has to sort of use his magical time loop powers to slow down time so he can walk through the fan section.
Through his biggest fan.
Yes. I'm not even acknowledging that pun. And Jabe gets turned into a crispy piece of bark, basically. I think that's a very toyetic thing again. There's so much stuff in Series 1 that's basically screaming to be made into merchandise.
So for this playset, we're going to have Jabe on fire as an exclusive figure.
Yes.
Yeah. And then basically have giant fans hooked up to a DC motor spinning so fast that you have to get your Ninth Doctor figure through without cutting it up. Yeah, that'd be a genius playset. Dangerous, but genius.
It's going to come with a scratch and sniff Jabe. She smells just like burnt firewood. Even, you know what? I think a Platform 1 viewing station playset could work. It's basically just three walls and a screen. You know, you could it's like you could put all your little figures in it, have the TARDIS there, have a vent section that you could put your spider droids in, maybe like a shutter.
We need a jukebox too.
Yeah, jukebox, a shutter section, like you can twist a knob and the shutters open and you see the Earth being burnt, or you can close them and they shut.
I mean, we need somewhere to house our Moxa Balhoun figure and Face of Bo and everything like that.
So we'll have 2 exclusive figures. We'll have Burnt Jabe and then Burnt Moxa Balhoun.
Yeah.
But it's funny to think, though. I mean, we've obviously talked about various characters we could do from this story, but when you actually think of the amount that were made from this episode, it's a lot. Like,
It really
who'd
is.
think get the Moxa Balhoun and Jabe and the Face of Bo and all the characters like that? It's odd that they made such a big deal out of this particular episode in figure form.
Wasn't it basically just because the BBC gave them the first 4 episodes to make things of? Wasn't it?
Most likely.
Probably. I wouldn't be shocked by that.
Which I think it lines up, because what are the first 4 episodes? You've got Rose with the Auton, End of the World with what you've just said, then you've got The Unquiet Dead with the zombie, and then isn't episode 4 Dalek?
No, that's also... Well, you got Slitheen.
Oh yeah, you got the Slitheen, and then...
For episode 4 and 5, and then you got Dalek.
Yeah, so it's probably they gave him the first half of the series to do, like to work with.
Well, the Gelf didn't come out till 2007, did it? So...
Did it? I didn't know that.
No. You can usually tell because it has a bicep articulation, which they didn't have until 2007.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
That's a good point.
Sad, but I know that. Yeah.
I think the technical term is knowledge.
But yeah, this episode was a standout in the sense that it had such a variety of different aliens. And you are right, we did get quite a few of these from this particular story. And just to round it out, I wouldn't mind seeing more of them. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing more from the forests of Cheem. Those tree guys to go with your Jabe. And then, like, the weird bird guys or Jax Wickerman or, like, anything like that. Like, just a handful of more characters. But they'd be really cool to make as figures, I think. So, if you had to pick your favorite thing that we discussed in this episode, what would you say is your favorite, Alex?
I'd say the Beauticians. Definitely. I like they've got a really creepy look to them. Despite all the cool, weird-looking aliens and things, they are still my number one because there is something very there's something if you really look at them. Like it's until we started coming up with these figure ideas, I didn't really look at them. I never really thought much about look at them. There is like a real creepiness to their heads in particular and their sort of lab coat look. Yeah, because I'm really drawn to that one.
What about you, Jack?
I agree with Alex. I think there's something really sort of eye-catching about a stark white figure on the shelf that sort of, I don't know, there's something, like I said...
character money on paint apps as well, so...
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, it just white and silver and a black gun.
And I think, and there's the marketability of having to buy 2 of them. I think, just the Beauticians are my choice too.
But no, there's 3 of everything.
Oh, that's true. We could include Cassandra, I guess.
Yes, that's it.
How is it we got Cassandra with David Tennant and then Rose, but we didn't get Cassandra and 2 Beauticians in a set? How did that not happen?
We got Chip.
Yeah, we got Chip and destroyed Cassandra, and we didn't get Cassandra and a Beautician. Come on, Al, we need Cassandra's Beauticians.
Well, you know what's funny, actually? At the end of this episode, Rose asks for Chip, and the next time Cassandra shows up, she's got a mate called Chip.
Wait, what?
At the end of the world, Rose says she wants chips, and then the next time Cassandra shows up, she's got a friend called Chip.
Maybe that was Russell's inside joke. I don't know.
All I can think now is if we had the grey hoodie Rose figure, it needs to come with an accessory of a bag of chips.
It does.
Yeah, and money, because the Ninth Doctor didn't have money.
Yes.
That's true.
So, yeah, I definitely agree with you guys. I think the Beauticians are the easy number one thing to make from this. But just for the sake of variety, I think I'd pick the Adherence of the Repeated meme. I think that's a really easy figure for character options to make. Just a couple of new parts, and we'd be good to go for getting a new figure. I think that just about does it for this episode. So, thank you guys so much for joining me on this episode. And last but not least, I'd like to thank you, the audience members, for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed it, be sure to share it with your friends, and also be sure to leave a like and subscribe.
For 2022, we've got huge plans such as a Patreon with exclusive content like custom figures tutorials, kit bashing guides, and painting tutorials.
And be sure to check out our YouTube channel as well, as we'll be uploading high quality figure reviews and even more toy content, so throw us a bone.
And the goal of this podcast series is to cover the history of all Doctor Who figures and toys, so be sure to stay tuned for more. I'm your host, Wade, and this is the Parliament of the Daleks.
Thanks for joining us, people. Yabba dabba doo. My name's Wade.
Please like and subscribe.
I'm here riding into town on my here horse, and I got me a lasso to go with me.